Welcome to DABCC Radio,
where smart people listen.
Virtualization and Cloud Talk,
Featuring cutting-edge solutions from the hottest companies around the globe.
broadcasting from the DABCC offices in sunny Sarasota, Florida.
Surrounded by computers, books, and Legos.
A Microsoft MVP, Citrix Charter CTP, VMware vExpert.
And your host, Douglas Brown.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of DABCC Radio. As always, we have an amazing show for you today. We really, truly do. I say that every time, but we have amazing episodes, and we really do. And today we have a great interview with a gentleman, Bob Allred from Right Systems, and we're going to talk about digital transformation, about what Right Systems is doing, and so much more. We're going to talk about EUC. We're going to talk about Citrix. We're going to talk about IGEL. We're going to talk about but it's a free for all. This is not a product pitch. It's not wide Right Systems. You'll learn that stuff, but it's really, you'll learn it because of what we're talking about. And you'll be like, I want to be on these guys' train. And that's what's so important. So that's the most important way to get excited about things. So with no further ado, let's just jump into my interview with Bob from Right Systems. Okay, Bob, thanks so much for taking the time to do this with us. I'm looking forward to this conversation. So I've known you guys. I've been friends with Right Systems since 2001. Can you believe it's been that long?
Time goes by, man.
Yeah, it really, truly does. So that being said, I'm excited to have you on. We did one with good old Mark Westling, I don't know, end of last year. So, but that was a quick little podcast. So now we're going to have a much longer one. We're going to talk about more than just Right Systems and talk a bit about digital transformation, which is a very interesting subject. I'm really curious to hear what you have to say about it, and what your customers, what you're hearing. So with no further ado, let's just get into this. So as always, my first question is, who are you? For those who don't know you, who's Bob? What do you do over at Right Systems?
Yeah, so first of all, thanks, Doug. Thanks for having me. Super excited to talk to you today. So Bob Allred, I like you said, I work for Right Systems. Today I manage the end user computing team. So I have a group of folks that work for me, and we spend a lot of our time really doing that end user computing stuff. So I've been at Right Systems about 10 years now as time goes on. Prior to that, I spent a little bit of time in the financial sector, the healthcare. I actually worked in healthcare for about 7 years prior to coming to Right Systems. Before that, I spent some time in the financial sector. And before that, if you go way back in time, I was actually in the service in the Navy for about 8 years. Wow. Interesting. So you probably don't know that about me. So when I graduated high school, this was to date myself, I guess a little bit, which was in the late 80s. I joined the Navy under their nuclear power program. I had the idea that I was going to do nuclear power. I was going to be a nuclear trained engineer. There was going to be some money to be made there, and gosh darn it, I was going to be the guy to make it. So I did that. Went to school, learned a lot about nuclear power. I was an engineer doing that. Spent a lot of time on submarines for the last half of my career. Got out, and as you probably know, we have not built a new nuclear power plant since then. So while there are jobs there's not a lot. So I bounced around, did a couple things that I kind of learned when I was in the service. Before getting into IT. But the interesting thing is now really that most of the guys that I worked with that were involved in nuclear power back then, most of those guys are actually in IT today. So I think a lot of those quote unquote smart guys moved away from that and moved right into IT.
Well, you know what? It's not a dumb field. You know what they always say is, what are you, a rocket scientist or a nuclear engineer? So nothing wrong with that one, right? Nothing wrong with that. That's right. Very cool. I did not know that. I actually went to military school thinking I'd want to go into the military. The good part is I only went to a year because after a year I was like, ooh, I don't want to do this anymore. IT is my direction. Well, actually, I became a programmer, and then I was like, "Ooh, I don't want to be a programmer." IT is my direction, so that's the direction I went. So it's been a fun ride. You can't complain. No complaints here. So that being said, you do work at Right Systems, you said, for about 10 years now. So can you tell us a bit about Right? What do you guys, what's the goal up there? What are you trying to accomplish?
Yeah. I mean, Right Systems, about, again, time goes by. Been in business 25 years.
Wow.
Started in Tumwater, Washington, about 50 miles south of Seattle. Started with the state of Washington, really working directly with the state of Washington and branched out from there. We've moved our office up the street a few miles. We're in Lacey now, but we've also branched out over the years while we're still headquartered here. We have an office in Bellevue, Washington, Spokane, Washington, Portland, Oregon, Boise, Idaho, and an office recently in Utah. So we really cover the entire Northwest.
Very nice, very nice. I've been to most of those offices.
Yeah.
I haven't been to Boise one, or I've been to the Boise one, the HQ, but the Salt Lake City. That's really neat that you guys are doing Utah now, because when in my Citrix days, I actually spent about 2 years covering Utah, and I really enjoyed it. Met some absolutely amazing people, as nice as I've ever met in all my travels. And I really, really have a soft space and a place in my heart for Utah and the Utah people. Just great guys, really, really great guys.
Oh, good, yeah. Yeah, I know it's beautiful out there. I've spent a little bit of time out there recently as well, and it's just a beautiful area. So we are. When I came to Right Systems, one of the things that I really liked about the company is that it's an engineering focused company. We are in the space of what you call a value added reseller, right? And it's really that value add piece that brought me to Right Systems. It's the customer relations that are built over time, and it's the focus that we're allowed to put on our customers and the challenges that they face from an engineering standpoint. We have a large group of engineers, very talented guys and women that do engineering with us and for our customers. And as we've seen, as you know, over time, we've seen, I think if you go back 10 or 15 years, I think we thought technology was really complicated 10 or 15 years ago, when VLANs didn't exist and networks were flat and virtualization didn't exist, and we just built servers, and storage area networks didn't exist. We just had local storage and servers, and it's a complicated world out there today in IT. And so we've recognized that at Right Systems over the years, and we've actually gone to more specialization of groups inside the company. We have a handful of groups now. So we have a networking group, and they focus on traditional networking, route switch, and firewall, and the type of stuff those guys love. And we have a data center group that focuses on virtualization and converged infrastructure and backup and replication and all of that type of stuff that you think of. We have a group that focuses on Microsoft. We are in the Northwest, and we are pretty busy doing Microsoft stuff. So we're big in System Center and Exchange and Office 365, and then my group, we focus on end user computing and everything that has to do with the delivery of applications and desktops, and that falls under my group.
That's great. That's great. And Right Systems is one of my favorites, Bob. You guys, like you said, you really focus on solutions and technical. And you're as technically smart as anybody I've met, and I've met a lot of integrators, and over the years, and it's amazing. You've always, hired just really great people. So I'm a huge fan of what the guys have built. Just a great company filled with good people, and just great stuff. So today we wanted to talk a bit about digital transformation. I always throw out to my guests, hey, what do you want to talk about, right? And Bob came to me and said, you know what, this digital transformation thing is really important, and we're hearing a lot from our customers. So I was like, awesome. It's one of the subjects I don't really understand that much, right? No, a little bit understand, but everyone has a different opinion. Everyone's hearing different things. Everyone takes it from a different angle. So I'm really excited to hear from what you guys are seeing, because you guys do work with such big companies and have such, wealth of expertise as we just talked about. So I'll just throw it at you real quick. What is digital transformation to you? What does that mean?
So great question. Yeah, no, I think it's a great question. I don't know if there's an answer to that. I think we're all still looking for the answer to that. And I think you said it a minute ago. There's different positions. There's different angles. It's not a one size fits all solution. You can't, if you go back to the early days of Doug Brown and you had methodology in a box, it was, listen, here is the way that you need to do this. And it was very concise and it was very clear and it was accurate, and people could latch onto that and go, okay, I know what I need to do because Doug put this really good stuff out there and I'm going to follow what he said. Today it's different for everybody. All organizations are different when it comes to the workspace. And so I think that's a lot of the challenge that folks have, is trying to wrap their head around what that means to them. It's a bit of a buzzword today. It's the VDI maybe of today is the digital workspace or the workspace transformation. And I think a lot of companies are trying to understand what that means to them today. So that's what we're trying to help folks do. I think that the desktop or the user workspace, historically, maybe not top of mind for folks. I mean, sure, we need to get what they need to them. We need to get them their desktop, right? That's always been the goal, is to get them their desktop with their applications on it. But the workspace as a whole, maybe not historically looked at. So, I need an endpoint device. Okay, well, I'll buy some endpoint devices. And what can I get on the cheap, or what can I get that's a commoditized resource maybe because, this is going to be a big capital project. I got to put some sort of an operating system on that. Today, most everybody, that's Windows 7. I'm going to have to get some apps to those folks. So, we'll just install some apps. But that's kind of where the process ends maybe sometimes. And then time goes on, and I realize that I need to get these apps to those people that are in another part of the world or another part of the country. And so maybe I'll bring in a solution like Citrix. And then I bring in that solution, and that works for a while. And then I realize that, oh boy, I'm having this printing issue. So I'll go out and try to find a printing solution, and I'll bring that in. And as time goes on, these frustrations from our end users build, because each time I solve a problem, another one comes up, and now the system crashes. And I figure, well, shoot, I don't have any insight. I don't know why it crashed. I guess maybe I better go get a monitoring solution. And I go out and I find a monitoring solution. And I plug that in. So I continue to plug these pieces in as the years go by. And it's kind of like you and I were talking before, and it's kind of it's a pay me now, pay me later type of an idea. You can look at it holistically up front and really look at the workspace and what you're trying to accomplish as an organization on day one, or you can continue to plug pieces in as time goes on. And that's the type of message that we're trying to bring to folks, is to look at it in a more holistic manner, I guess I would say.
Well, what are the businesses? So that's how you sort of see it, right? When a business comes to you, are they on the same page? How are they approaching the desktop? Do you have to educate them and say, yeah, that sounds great, but you should really think about it this way? Or, what are you hearing from that side of the table?
I think it's interestingly enough, we are trying to drive a little bit more of this conversation ourselves, because I think if you look at it from a business perspective, I think if you look up and down the structure of a business, your traditional business, you're going to have a CIO. You're probably going to have a director, depending on the size of the organization, a director or various directors over various aspects of IT. You may have some supervisors under them, and then you have some guys turning the wrenches and doing the work below them. And then if you look through that group, they're spread out where you have guys doing network work, and you have a team doing end user computing, and you have somebody responsible for storage, maybe another person or people responsible for security. And everybody is very busy. Everybody is working hard. A lot of people are wearing more hats today than they were 10 years ago. Sometimes these people work right next to each other. Sometimes they work across the room. Sometimes they work maybe in the same building. Sometimes they're not in the same building. Sometimes they're working from home or they work in another state. And so the continuity and the communication isn't necessarily all there. And as you know, when we talk about the workspace, we have to talk about the environment holistically, right? It's just a desktop. It's just an endpoint. It's a device, whatever that device is, that allows me to get the applications to the users. And you have to talk about all of the other aspects of this that we're talking about, whether it's security, the type of device, how I'm getting the applications down to the user, what types of devices the users are using, et cetera, et cetera. And so it's a bit of a challenge sometimes when you look at this and you say, so today, if you take where we are today, right, I'm on Windows 10. You're a Mac guy, but if you were a PC guy, you'd probably be on Windows 10. Most of the IT folks that I work with are on Windows 10. Most people at home are on Windows 10 because Microsoft has made it a fairly seamless upgrade process. But in the business world, we're not on Windows 10. And we're kind of at one of those points in time, we're all running Windows 7, right? Well, Windows 7 has been out for a really long time. And before that, we were on XP, and that had been out for a really long time. You have the opportunity every 6, 8, 10 years to take a hard look at what you're doing and make a transformation in the way that your users function. And if you go back to when Windows 7 came out and you say, well, how do workers function today versus the way they functioned maybe on the day that Windows 7 was released, is it different? And you and I both know it's extremely different. We went through a lot of time where we talked about the desktop. We talked about VDI a lot, and VDI is valuable, and there's some tremendous use cases for VDI. But I think as time has gone on, we've shifted a little bit of that thinking back to the original line of thinking from Citrix, which was really it's really about the application, getting the application to the user securely, properly, so it's functional all of the time and it's an excellent experience all the time. That's what it's really about. And so to bring that question back around, what are businesses doing around this? They're struggling with it, and it's that's what we're trying to help people with is to take a look at this in the big picture rather than the micro picture, which is, I know that I need to get to Windows 10. I know the Windows 7 is going EOL. I know I need to get to Windows 10. And okay, well, how do I do that? And maybe the easy button, how do I do that, is I go buy a bunch of new PCs, and all those new PCs come with Windows 10. And yeah, most of my apps will probably run in Windows 10 because they run in Windows 7. And I'm just going to move forward like that. And that's what we're trying to help people think about a little bit.
That's interesting. And I'm glad you mentioned the app, because as you were talking about Windows 7 and Windows 10, and in your previous answer about desktop transformation, I kept thinking about the app, because that's where you were leading me, right? I mean, the next step was the app. And I was waiting for you to say it, and you hadn't said it, and then you said it. And I'm glad you mentioned it, because, I think about, it's all about the app, stupid, right? Nobody comes into their office saying, oh, gee, I can't wait to use my desktop. Or, I can't wait to use that, new Citrix server, that Cisco core router, right? They say, oh, I have to make a PowerPoint today, or I have to make a spreadsheet, or I have to finish this, this doc I'm working on, right? It's about the app at the end of the day, and IT is there to facilitate the user to do what they're doing, not to give them all these great tools. I mean, we want to play with the great tools. We're techies. But the users aren't, and technology needs to get out of their way. And so it's, at the end of the day, it is about the app. Do you see Windows 10 changing that? What about Windows 11? I mean, where do you see it? What's that transformation, into being more app centric? Do you see that happening? If I could say, hey, what's Bob's crystal ball look like?
I think we do see it happening. I mean, I think we've seen a shift. I know certainly if you listen to and read the message from Citrix, it's been very refreshing over the last couple of years as their mentality and their thought process has really shifted back to, at the end of the day, it really is just about the application. I think the challenge sometimes at the business level is it's what you said, and I say this a lot, and if you really try to boil IT down to its most simplistic form, I think we get lost sometimes in just what you said. It's what's the coolest gadget or what's the next neat thing. Users, they don't really care about that. What they want is, just like you said, today I have to create a PowerPoint presentation. So I'm going to come in, I'm going to sit down, and I'm going to click on the button that says PowerPoint. And I expect PowerPoint to launch, and I expect it to be quick, and I expect it to be secure, and I expect it to work exactly the same every single day. And I can't accept downtime, and I can't accept that it doesn't work, and I can't accept that it sometimes works. It needs to work all of the time. And that's what users care about. And I think maybe sometimes when we're in IT, and we've been in IT for a long time, and we're head down trying to solve some very complex problems, that we maybe lose sight of really what the purpose of IT is, which is really to make sure that users can get to their applications and perform their function.
Yeah.
So yeah, no, I think Windows 10 is important for this. Certainly there's an EOL coming up, and that's important to everybody. And I think everybody knows that they need to get to Windows 10. I think the direction that Citrix is taking and working with Microsoft on Windows 10 is certainly important when you look at some of the newer versions of Windows 10 that have come out recently.
Yeah, there's so many versions of it. You think Windows 10, one version, right? No, there's like 5 different versions. It's amazing. But, like I always like to say, and I stole this from someone. I didn't come up with this, but I've gone around the world talking about this actually. So I made it my own. And that is, we're in IT, but we talk about the T, the technology. That's the second letter, right? Really, it's about the information. They have to make a PowerPoint. They're creating information, or they need to get some numbers. They're pulling information, right? That's what we're there for. And to me, digital transformations, it's all about creating more information. IoT is about gleaming information, and making things easier for users in the way they understand in an easy to consume fashion, right? Anywhere, anyplace, anytime.
Oh, yeah.
It's really,
absolutely.
The world's changing in ways, and then you have mobility, and gosh help us, when we get to 5G wireless, boy, I can't wait for that day. Almost infinite bandwidth everywhere. So, what is CIO saying to you about this? Do you have conversation? I imagine you have quite a few conversations with those guys. What are they trying to accomplish?
Yeah,
and are you able to accomplish it today?
No, we are, and we do have those conversations. I think people do realize and want to solve these challenges. However, it's a big task. It's a big undertaking to say that I have 1,000 employees, and those 1,000 employees are running Windows 7 today, and I need to get them to Windows 10 in a more secure environment and a less complex environment. And how do I do that? And it becomes a monumental task, and it becomes a monumental effort that often we find organizations can't solve on their own. And that is when they talk to us. They have a lot of challenges there, right? Manpower is a challenge. We're in the Pacific Northwest, Right Systems is, and we're right south of Seattle. And manpower today in Seattle is a tremendous challenge. It's a hot market for IT right now, and today there are more jobs than there are people that are capable of filling those roles, and so manpower is a challenge. Like I said, you have people wearing probably more hats than they should in a lot of organizations, and they just don't have the time to do this. And I think C-level folks are starting to recognize this, and the direction has to come from the top. When you look at a transformation type of project, I think you talk to the IT guys that are turning the wrenches. You talk to the desktop support folks, or you talk to the Citrix administrators. They get it. They understand it. But it's more of a top-down approach that we're looking for. And that's why, so at Right Systems, we've tried to take that approach to work a little higher up and have these higher-level conversations with some other folks. And when you look at the endpoint devices, it's a challenge from, today I have 1,000 endpoint devices that are running an older version of Windows. It was purchased to run Windows 7, or maybe even it was purchased to run Windows XP. And then I went to Windows 7 on that device. That device is not going to run Windows 10. And so the endpoint piece of this becomes an effort for folks just purely from a capital expenditure standpoint. And that's why we work with somebody like iGel to have really compelling conversations with our customers around what we can do with the endpoint device.
Yeah, it's, I was going to say, bringing iGel into the conversation is quite interesting. And one of the reasons I've always loved the thin client aspect, or, these sort of, I don't want to call them dumb terminals, but, a thin client, a secure access point, whatever you want to call it, is that it's about the app, right? And we don't need all these moving parts. Citrix is a wonderful solution, or this Citrix mentality, be it Citrix, VMware, Microsoft, anybody that does sort of remoting, right? I won't pick on one because I think they're all great. It's a mindset. Allows us to get to our applications anywhere, any place, anytime on devices that make sense. And nowadays with mobility and iPads and iPhones and what have you, now we can take something like an iGel, UD Pocket, that little, a thin client on a USB stick, or a big giant UD6, which is a quad core, powerful machine, and deploy down to the applications and have it managed centrally by one guy, right? You don't have to worry about WannaCry. You don't have to do any of that because it's secured by nature. And it just solves so many problems beyond the edge of the remoting solution of these application delivery solutions. I think it's an essential piece to the future. And a lot of people look at it and say, oh, yeah, well, that's been around a long time. And it's finally, people are, they should have always, but for sure nowadays they should be thinking about it, because it's that final piece to allow us. You know what I mean?
No, I completely agree. I think that's always been the, who's iGel? Oh, well, those guys make thin clients. It's the same as any of the thin client vendors, sure. Right? Who is so and so? Oh, well, they make thin clients. Oh, okay, I got it. They make thin clients. I get it.
Whoopee.
But it is different now. The only reason I started talking to you initially, just to be transparent, is I wanted to win the Tesla. Now that I've realized I can't win the Tesla,
you can't win.
I'm not eligible to win the Tesla.
I can't win.
I'm still talking to you anyway.
It is cool. Thanks for bringing that up. Guys listening, if you're not a work for a vendor or a partner, if you're an end-user customer, go over to igel.com and sign up and put just the word DABCC in the code. That'll work for you. Or there's one on the main page of the website, but DABCC works. So, and you can win a Tesla. Yeah, that's a $140,000 car. I want that Tesla. Bob, do you have a Tesla?
Yeah, I don't. That's the only reason I started talking to you guys, is because I wanted to win the Tesla. But anyway, yeah. So I'm talking to you still. Is it a thin client device? Well, sure it is. But I think you mentioned some of the things that make it so much more. We work with some folks right now, a number of companies that are looking at wholesale PC refreshes, not necessarily because the device has to go in the garbage today, but because the device can't run Windows 10. I sure would love to get 2 or 3 more years out of that device. I could, if I could deliver something virtual to the device, and that's where the UD Pocket comes in that you mentioned a couple minutes ago. Yep. And I would say the uptick on conversations around the UD Pocket is huge right now. I think it's kind of an easy button of getting some more life out of some devices that you own and bringing that cost down a little bit to get you through a couple more years. So that is huge. We have a number of customers that have a lot of remote workers, not remote workers in the form that we typically talk about remote workers. Right? Our typical remote worker that we want to talk about is the traveler or the work from home periodically guy or the guy that travels a lot. We talk about those work from home people a lot. But I think there's also the other work from home people that work from home every day. People that work in healthcare, maybe, that are transcriptionists or coders. And so the method for a long time has been to send those people home with some sort of a device that gets them access to a phone and a laptop or a PC or an unmanaged thin client device. And I don't know about you, I do not want to manage laptops that I'm sending home to workers that I never see again or that I only see once a year. I don't want to manage that. So the ability to send users home now with the device that I can manage via the iGel Cloud Gateway and easily manage it, by the way, that's pretty cool. And I think a lot of people really love that solution as well.
Yeah. Well, I want to manage as least as possible, or I won't say that. I want to manage, or I want as much or least amount of management as possible. And of course, there's huge value, in PCs. There's types of users that require them. I require one. You require one. There's times when I don't require one, right? When I'm consuming content, when I'm creating, doing office work, if I did a lot of 3D CAD, although I can do that on a Citrix server nowadays, too. Isn't that amazing? You've been around this world for a long time. Isn't it amazing what you can do with those NVIDIA cards and, and the AMD and what have you? It's just phenomenal. To see it still blows my mind. I never get sick of watching that.
No, very cool. Very cool. I mean, we're still in the world where, you just said it, we're still in the world where a virtual desktop is not for everybody. Absolutely. And that's one of the first things we talk to people about. That I go to a lot of meetings, and you probably have the same meetings where you step in and they say, hey, you know what? I want to do VDI. And hopefully the first question is, why? Yeah. Why do you want to do VDI? What's the use cases that you have? And what we start to realize real quick is that there is an absolute value for VDI in most organizations. But at the same time, VDI is not for everybody. It might be for 5% of your workforce. It might be for 25% of your workforce. It might be for 75% of your workforce. And we help people understand the pros and the cons of delivering that type of solution to various different groups inside their organization. But like you said, that use case for delivering any type of an endpoint device, to deliver a virtual workplace or workspace to users, the percentage of folks that we can deliver that to increases every day with value add from folks like NVIDIA or hyper-converged infrastructure. If you go back to when VDI was the true buzzword of IT, maybe 5 or so years ago, 6 years ago, when we first started having VDI conversations with our customers, it was a bit of a challenge. I can remember, as you probably can, talking to customers and saying, well, yeah, we can virtualize your 2,500 workstations. Just be aware you're going to need a room to store all of the disks, a very large room to store all of the spinning disks that are going to store those virtual desktops. And now technology advanced to the point where I don't need a very large room full of spinning disks, of course, to do that. Yeah. So technology has advanced on the hardware side. Certainly, folks like Citrix have continued to advance the technology on the software side. Add in something like, what the folks at NVIDIA do to bring VDI to folks who could not do it before and bring tremendous cost savings to those guys. And the use cases continue to grow really every day.
Yeah. It's amazing. And then the technology, like, Pure Storage, and there's a bunch of them. And then, it can take the amount of drive space that you have and just cut it in, a quarter, if not less, right? It's phenomenal what you can do out there. And, what do I say? Yep. But what's also amazing, too, is that Citrix
But the challenge to that, Doug, though, you're
please.
Right. Sorry.
No, please.
You're right. The challenge is, though, it's sometimes the old, you don't know what you don't know.
Yeah.
Right. And because your ear is to the ground and you talk to people every day, and my ear is to the ground and I talk to people every day.
I learned on DABCC radio.
I love it. So you talk to smart people and you take what you learn from them and you use it, right?
Yeah.
But our ears are to the ground and we listen and we read a lot of stuff and a lot of the folks that we work with, like I said, they're really busy. And, they're head down, keeping the lights on and keeping the system running and keeping their users happy. and they don't necessarily have the insights that folks like you or folks like us at Right Systems have into what's going on in the market, what's going on with technology. You mentioned Pure Storage. Maybe it's Nutanix with hyper-converged infrastructure. We try to bring those conversations, and if you bring this back to the idea of around a workspace and around the type of experience that you're delivering to folks, we have to bring all of that in, and that's the value we bring to people, whether it's that or whether it's the endpoint devices, whether it's automation. All of this has to tie in together, and like I said, you don't know what you don't know. That's the value that we hope that we can bring to people to help them have a holistic look at this. And when you can look at it as a solution versus a point of, I need to get to Windows 10. If I can look at it as a solution, I think we can help them achieve the goals that they want to achieve. They maybe just aren't quite sure sometimes how to get there.
Yeah. And that's why you guys are a solution provider. And I've for a long time wanted to write the article. Excuse me. Long time wanted to. That's what would happen to me if I wrote it. Write the article. The solution provider is dead. Long live the vendor pusher. But there are still a lot of, I won't say a lot, but a handful of really good solution providers like Right Systems. And I mean that as I know you guys quite well, right? That look at the problem, figure out, okay, here's what we can do. Listen to the customer, and then create a solution around that, based on numerous different technologies. Nutanix, I love that you mentioned those guys. Talk about disruptive, right? Just a great, way of computing. I love it. Absolutely love it. So the world's changing, Bob. It's not the world that you and I signed up for, right? And back then we controlled the end user. Wasn't that fun, though? You will get this. You will not get this. No. I have the power. Nowadays they have the power, don't they?
That is so funny.
It's totally
that
true.
is so funny. I've said this. It's 100% true. When I worked in healthcare, and it's been a little over 10 years since I was in healthcare, and I would sit at my desk, and somebody would come to me and say, "Hey, we would like to do this. Can we please do that?" And you would kind of smash your fist on the table. Not you wouldn't smash your fist on the table, but in your mind, You're smashing your fist on the table, and you're saying, "You will not do that. You're not bringing that device here. You're not connecting that device to my network. You are not doing that." And we shifted from, I think you said it, we've shifted from users asking nicely to IT to say, "Hey, could I please connect my Mac to your network?" We've shifted from people asking to people telling.
Yep.
And maybe that's a generational thing. I'm not sure what it is, but it's not the world we signed up for. It is a completely different world, and it's a very demanding world of IT. Users are very demanding, and rightfully so.
Yeah.
They have a job to do, and they're expected to get their job done, and it's our responsibility in IT to provide them with a solution that allows them to get their job done quickly, concisely, securely, etc.
I'm pretty much, I can talk to you all day long. If there's anything else you want to chat about, please let me know. But, I was going to ask you why Right Systems, but in many ways, you just answered that question, right? But I'll throw it at you. Why Right Systems? Is someone, is in your area or looking for someone really good and they want to bring you in? Because I imagine you guys go many different places. You did mention you were just in Rome. You want a gig in Rome, right? Do you want to come out to Italy or Germany and chat about IT with some folks?
Send me out. You and me in Munich. Let's do it.
Yeah, no.
I think
come
we
to
look at
Berlin.
ourselves-
Berlin's where it's happening. Munich, they're Bavarians.
Right,
I love the Bavarians. But we
I
got better beer
I will
up
wait
here.
for my.
Don't
I
tell
will,
them
I will wait for my airline ticket to show up.
that. Okay.
I think we are a solution provider. I think you said it, Doug, but it's true. We are a solution provider. The folks that founded Right Systems and continue to run Right Systems and push Right Systems in the right direction continue to understand the value of providing value and service to our customers and providing solutions and building long-term relationships. If if you look at Right Systems and you kind of went through if we were to create a family tree of Right Systems customers, you would see that tree, it has a lot of branches, and they branch in a lot of ways because we create relationships with folks, and we stick with them through thick and thin. And, when they go somewhere else, one of the first calls they make is right back to Right Systems to say, hey, listen, I just landed over here and I need some help. And I know you guys are the ones that can help me because you've helped me before. And so it's about relationships, and it's about providing solutions that not only make the IT folks that we work with successful, but make their users successful.
You got it. Bob, thank you so much. Is there any, hey, we have a few more minutes if you do. I want to ask you one more thing that's a big buzzword today, and you hear a lot about, and it also has to do, I mentioned it in a little bit earlier, but IoT. Are you starting to hear about, our customers saying, hey, what's this IoT thing? And, what's your response? What's your opinion on IoT? Let's just go down that rabbit hole if you want to.
A great question. I'm not hearing it. I'm not hearing it a lot yet.
Interesting.
I'm reading it more than I'm hearing it. I would love to actually hear. If you don't mind me turning that on you, I'd love to hear your opinion on that.
Ooh, the IoT well, first of all, I like to call it IOE, Internet of Everything. I think that Cisco has it right. It's not a things, it's about everything. I also think that, there's many different opinions on it or views on it. If you're a consumer, you think about the watches and the light bulbs and the refrigerators and the umbrellas and all these sort of enchanted objects that we're making intelligent and useful, right? From a business perspective, and what IT people need to think about, it's really an industry of rewards. And in the sense of we're connecting these devices, and the devices are able to give us information. They're helping us with a better understanding what our businesses are, what our customers need, right? In the past, it was sort of, analytics was a crapshoot, really. Where now everything is throwing off data, and you throw that in because of Moore's Law, because of, Amazon storage or, just cheap storage in general, but, cloud storage. We can throw this stuff up there. We can get at it in a really efficient and affordable way from anywhere, any place, and any time. And then we can, with our analytics tools, heck, you can download a visualizer on your iPad for free. No, I'm not saying IT does that, but, now if it's possible for free consumer, IT can do even better things. Citrix is getting in that business, right? They talked about that at Synergy, where they're able to, turn on some data analytics, start collecting data. And although, when you start collecting data, you got to have the power for it too. But, and now we can look at that data and we can say, okay, we can turn off the lights at 10 p.m. because no one's there. We can, understand that, really this product is not what people are using it for. They're using it for this use case, and maybe they pivot their companies, right? I think that we're going to see a lot of changes in the world because of the data we're getting out of it. So it's going to be a reward economy in some ways, or not economy, but output of IoT. It's I had somebody called it Internet of Toys a few years ago, and we're definitely out of the toys space. It's from the business about operational intelligence, efficiency and intelligence, and that's really exciting.
Agreed. No.
Right. So nuclear
absolutely.
engineering going to big data analytics. That's the next growth industry. So.
No, I think it's fascinating. If you and you're right, everything you said is absolutely correct. I think IoT, similar to mobility, in the fact that you said toys. It's been more of a consumer-driven focus initially, but now the business piece is big. It's not filtering down to a lot of the folks that we work with yet today, but it's coming.
Yeah.
I heard a really interesting story the other day about they did a huge study on how much people walk every day. I don't know if you saw that.
No.
So utilizing stuff like the iPhone, right? So the iPhone's got a built-in health monitor. It tells me I took 3,617 steps yesterday. And they did a huge study on this data, this big data, to determine in all of the countries throughout the world how much people are walking every day, and which countries people are walking the least, and which countries people are walking the most. And the study is gosh, I can't remember the number. I heard like 1,000 times larger than any study like this they've ever done. And it's simply pulling data to do that. So that type of stuff is very fascinating. I think we're seeing it in IT, of course, just like you said. Citrix is doing some really cool stuff with their analytics and some of the tools they have. It hasn't filtered necessarily down to the conversations that we're having with our customers, aside from, maybe what some of the Citrixes of the world are doing.
Yeah. And I think also IoT is going to power the AI revolution too, in many ways, because of that data that it's pulling off in AI. Well, AI is a whole different thing too, because, what are you talking about when you talk about AI? Are you talking about machine learning, deep learning, true intelligence, or just, being able to glean information off of data? As a human, we can look at a bunch of data on a piece of paper and sort of quickly come to a determination, right? Now computers can do that 1 billion times faster than we can, and they have 1 billion times more data than we have that we can ever put in front of our faces. And we're seeing that stuff come into almost every product nowadays. And I just read an article today or yesterday saying that by 2020, every one of our products is going to have some form of AI in it. They use that word AI very loosely, in my opinion, but some sort of form of learning, right? Or understanding. Learning I use loosely, of understanding what's going on based on that data. And that's just in everything, all of our apps. And that's huge for companies like yours and for IT, because we're going to see them, IT being forced to, or maybe not forced, but it's beneficial to upgrade a lot of systems and legacy applications, to start getting data out of those applications so they can understand their customers better, right? Or their product or their offering better.
You got it.
I read so much and so all my audiobooks, although I am listening to an audiobook on blockchain, which is quite interesting because I know nothing about it, but I keep reading, or I keep seeing it in articles. It's like, what the heck is this blockchain and why do I need to care about it? So I
feel like I'm behind the curve, right?
You gotta read about blockchain. It's quite interesting. But when I just said that, it made me think of one of my favorite jokes, but it's a true story. I had a friend of mine that worked he was an admin many years ago, and his boss came in. They had a new CIO or IT director, I forget what it was, and he came up and he was walking by some desks, and this guy, one of the engineers, was talking to one of the other engineers, and he said, we keep getting a lot of Dr. Watsons on there, or Dr. Watson's on our server, Dr. Watson's on our server. And so the guy must have, overheard him and sent an email, and it said, who the hell is Dr. Watson and why is he on my server?
You're dating yourself there.
Yeah. But I think most people have got a good chuckle. I sure got a good chuckle on that one. And I'm still telling the joke, and it's been 10 years, but who the hell is Dr. Watson? Why is he on my server? I just thought that was great. So on that note, let's go ahead and call this a podcast. I'll give you the last word, Bob, and thank you so much for taking the time to come on and share what you guys are doing, some of what you're hearing, and of course, just pontificate about everything. So I took you through the who, what, when, why, I think. And if I missed anything, please let me know.
No, I appreciate it, Doug. Thanks for the time today. Thanks certainly for saying kind words about Right Systems. And I look forward to talking to you again soon.
Well, saying kind words about Right Systems is just easy. When I close off this podcast after the interview's done, I'll tell them the story about meeting Right for the first time. It's one of my favorite stories. So when you listen to the recorded version, you can hear that. If I haven't told it to you 10 times. I think Mr. Westling's definitely sick of hearing it, but it's one of my favorite stories. So it's a very nice story.
Love it.
Very nice, man. So thanks again, Bob, and we'll go ahead and call this an episode.
Okay. Thanks, Doug.
Okay, so that concludes another successful episode of DABCC Radio. As always, I want to thank my guest for today, Bob from Right Systems. Thoroughly enjoyed it. We had a great intro conversation, and we even chatted a little bit afterwards about, everything we chatted about and a little bit more. So I should record those things and share them with you. They're usually good, but I told you I would tell you this story, and I might have when I interviewed Mark Westling, but I met Right Systems in late July or early August of 2001. And I just started at Citrix, and I was a scared little kid from Des Moines, Iowa. I moved out west, and I wanted to work with the big boys, West Coast, Silicon Valley, Seattle, Microsoft turf, right? And so I was really excited about it, and I got invited up to Seattle, where Right Systems is located, or one of the areas located, to do a little conference and do a session about Citrix. And I get up there, I'm just scared to the core, and I'm almost shaking. I'm so scared. I remember it so clear. And in the front row was this guy with just bright white hair, whitish, blondish hair, and just staring at me. And I'm looking at this guy. He's just staring at me with a straight face. And I do my session. He gets done, and I get done. He walks up to me, and I was like, oh my God, there's this guy. He's walking up to me. What's he going to say to me? I'm still scared. I thought I did an okay job, but I didn't know, and he looks at me and said, hi, Doug, my name is Mark Westland from Right Systems. You really did a great job. I learned something. I've been doing Citrix for a long time. Thank you. And I remember that so well. And I tell you, it made my career, to be honest with you. It wasn't the greatest thing anybody's ever told me, but it was probably one of the most important things anybody ever told me, because at that time I needed confidence. I needed to know I was doing well. I needed to know I was on the right page, right? And for someone to do that was just so priceless to me. And it's just, it's just a great example of what these people are, what Right Systems is, the type of culture they have there. And I've loved the man ever since, and not just for that reason. He's a downright great guy. So, and they've always hired just downright great guys. Bob is a great guy. The entire team is great guys. Even a lot of, what's amazing too is when the culture hasn't changed. When they bring in new people, they're looking for this type of person, this type of personality. And it's wonderful. I've been a huge fan. And like I said, I've been around the world. To know me, I've been around the world. Last week I was in Finland. So, and I met a lot of people, and Right Systems is up there and in the top of that list. I just can't say enough about them. They're really great people. And if you're in that area, if you're looking for, some great, help, someone to pass your ideas around, any type of computing, as Bob said, they not just Citrix, not just Agile, but any type of sort of, IT computing. Reach out to the folks at Agile or at Agile. Reach out to Agile too, but reach out to Right Systems, and I think you're in for a treat. Just downright great and extremely brilliant people. So on that note, again, Bob, thank you so much for taking the time to do this with me. And of course, most importantly, thank each and every one of you guys for listening to DABCC Radio. Without you, I'm just talking to Bob. It's just Bob and I talking, and I can do that. I enjoy it, but it's more fun when you listen to it. So if you like the episode, please tell a friend. And if you'd like to be on DABCC Radio, email me and come on and let's talk about IoT, AI, big data, Agile, digital transformation, you name it. I will talk about it. And I'll learn from you. How's that sound? So email me, dbrown@dabcc.com, baby. And or I'm at brown@igel.com too. As you know, I'm the global technology evangelist over there because it's talking about great company. Agile's a great company. Just a downright great company. We're doing amazing things. I wouldn't join just any company. I don't need it. I wanted it. And that's the way that's the way to live. So what else do I say again? But thank you so much for listening to DABCC Radio.
Can you say DABCC?
DABC.
Say it again, DABCC.
DABC.
Can you say it again, DABCC?
DABC.
How about DABCC?
DABC.
DABCC.
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 DABCC.